Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We're nice and full today. I hope you've all managed to get somewhere comfortable to sit. And we have half an hour, and that's all, to talk about email and mobile. And as you can see, the subject on the card is mobile email, why does it matter and what should you do? Or words to that effect. So we're going to talk in the general area of that subject for the next half hour. We have a very distinguished panel here of experts in both mobile and email, some of each and some of both. And I know that a lot of you are very expert at each and both of those as well. So what I thought I'd do is let the panel introduce themselves and then one by one give their answer to this question, their thoughts in this rapidly changing part of our business, and then open it up to you all to ask any questions. And we should have some time for that. So please start thinking of some questions that you'd appreciate some answers to, some discussion. Okay? Good, that's the deal. So introductions. My name is Mike Berry. I'm an independent consultant in digital. I used to work in direct marketing. I'm old enough to have worked in marketing before email and mobile came along, and I'm quite interested to see how things are changing. And I know that of all the parts of the digital business at the moment, this one is moving very, very quickly. And we're very lucky to have some absolute subject specialists with us today. So without further ado, let me ask my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Good morning. So my name's Rob Thurner. I am a mobile specialist. I train with the IDM, eConsultancy, various others. I've just written 2 books about the subject mobile marketing, 7 Steps for Success with Dr. Dave Chaffee, who will be known to some of you, and a book about mobile commerce, 10 Key Decisions for Mobile Commerce.
Good morning, my name is Richard Austin. I'm the e-marketing strategy consultant for Silvercat. I help our clients develop multi-channel digital marketing campaigns and design campaigns as well as design for mobile.
Hello. Okay, take 2. My name is Richard Austin. I'm the e-marketing strategy consultant for Silvercat.
A bit closer.
And I help our clients develop multi-channel behavioural marketing campaigns. I design and develop the resulting campaigns as well as including designing for mobile.
Hi, I'm Mark Mounier from Pure 360. We're an email and SMS provider, so it'll be interesting because we're kind of in both camps. You know, is it about mobile or is it about email? We're kind of experienced in both. I lead the sales and marketing functions at Pure 360, and you all must ask lots of questions. That's the one thing I'll say, okay? Because if you ask lots of questions, we'll be talking about what you want to talk about. So I'm going to hand over now.
I'm Martin Smith. I'm the head of marketing for Neolane. Neolane is a cross-channel campaign management tool. Quite interesting that we're talking about mobile and especially about email, because I think email is just only one component of the whole communication aspect of mobile. And I think what we're seeing is, from our perspective, the likes of Forrester and Gartner have actually both quoted the growth of the mobile sector, especially when it comes to the combination of social, local and mobile, is immense, and especially around the area of the fact that around about 60% of the UK market in terms of mobile phones is now smartphones. And I think people really need to think about, from a marketing perspective, how they're going to get their head around that.
Thank you to all the panelists. We'll be hearing a lot more from them in a minute. So we have an interesting combination of 2 different things here, don't we? Email and mobile. And whenever anyone mentions the word silos in marketing circles, everyone says, ooh, bad, bad, bad. Break them down. We don't want silos. Of course, if it was an agricultural conference, it would be great, because silos are really good for drying stuff. But I'm on the limit of my knowledge of silos, so I'll shut up. So silos are bad. We need to break them down. We need to integrate, which we all agree. However, the way we segment training and we segment books and we segment disciplines indicates that we should have something called mobile, something called social media, something called analytics, something called email, and they're split up, and that's one way to understand things and to make sense of them. But of course in the real world it doesn't work like that. So today we're taking just two of those, which are big enough in their own right, and putting them together because of the way things are changing. I think the latest figure I read was that 25% of all emails are now read on a mobile device. I can't prove that, but if you write it down, don't attribute it to me. I'm surprised it isn't bigger than that from my own experience. I think it depends on what you're using your mobile device for, doesn't it? And even how you define a mobile device. Some people seem to be living on their tablet and smartphone, so it's actually quite an effort for them to find a PC to check their emails on. So I think it's very interesting to see where that number's going to go to and how it affects how we organise our email campaigns, and particularly what our emails are going to look like on the various mobile devices available. So could I ask our panellists to give us their thoughts on that? Rob?
Yeah, I agree entirely with this silo concept. I think that the main point here is that over time, consumer behavior is changing the way marketers need to behave and the way they need to present content in various forms. The mobile phone is the device of choice now for growing numbers of people. It's estimated by Google this year that the mobile phone will be the device of choice to access the internet, overtaking PC. Tablets are a whole different market here. Arguably, tablets are more important than both, because with tablets we have a larger screen, which allows us to have a better user experience, but also we have the relaxation and the mindset of sort of sitting back and spending more time rather than being more task orientated when we're at a desktop, laptop, or indeed more action orientated with less time when we're on a mobile device. So I think that the key issue here about email on mobile, it's always a good place to start looking at the statistics. eConsultancy reckons that 75% of smartphone users are using email on their phone. It's the most popular activity on a phone. And if we add on to that consumer behavior and realize that actually with a mobile phone, people have the opportunity to engage in all sorts of times and places. We never leave our phones 24/7, they're with us. And whether we're commuting, we're sitting at home watching TV, or in the pub, or in bed, or in the bath, or anywhere else, we can be using dead time to engage. This is a very powerful opportunity for brands to engage consumers when they're in multi-mindsets, different places, different times, with relevant messaging. And so whether you're in B2B or B2C marketing, mobile is a very important way to connect with people throughout the whole purchase cycle. So I'll hand over next.
Thanks. I would move on a little bit from that and talk about the fact that with most of our clients, what we have reported as m-commerce is mostly from the iPad platform. And the question there is looking at the different behaviours and how people are responding to mobile, is looking at which particular platform is used for which purpose. So if people are buying from an iPad, are they truly mobile, or are they using it as a third screen in the home to purchase on the back of advertising and promotions within TVs and shows? So I think although there's quite a lot of documentation and knowledge around how to design for mobile, both through adaptive templates and scalable designs, the bigger question, which will be answered over the next few months with some deeper research, is to exactly what behaviours are people exhibiting when they're mobile. So how mobile is your mobile? Are you out and about using one of these, using a smartphone, or actually at home using an iPad as a third device and responding to messages in a different way? And I think that's kind of the next phase of mobile insights and mobile development.
Okay, so mobile and email is important. Okay, so our stats show that nearly 50% of B2C sends are opened on non-desktop. So if you're not optimizing for it already, get optimizing for it. So what I think is really interesting, though, the stuff that we'll be talking about hopefully in conferences in a year or two's time, is the demographic quality that you can assign to a mobile phone. And what I mean by that is, I have an iPhone. It's a new one because I'm a gadget freak. chap next to me's got an HTC, somebody else has probably got a BlackBerry, somebody else is using an iPad. All these things tell you a huge amount about the individuals that you're contacting via email. The thing about email is that it's an individual specific thing. You can look at your Google Analytics and you can say, right, I've got 10% of the people using an iPhone, but you don't know who those people are. This is personally identifiable information which you can then use to make smarter marketing campaigns moving forward. And I also pick up the point that the guys have already made here about location and time. There's a great report by Google on the future of devices, which is fascinating. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but they talk about how iPads are coming, tablets. Google would never say iPad, would they? Are becoming more prevalent. How people are spending so much of their time consuming content through this myriad of devices. So I would say, if you're not optimizing for different devices using responsive design now, you need to be doing that kind of like by this afternoon, guys. But the really interesting stuff, and I think the stuff that makes more interesting conversation, is how can you use what you find out through people's phones to market to them more effectively.
Okay. I suppose a couple of points there. Mike, you mentioned silos, and I think this is a challenge for a lot of organisations generally throughout marketing, is actually understanding how they can pull this information into one place and use it effectively to communicate, regardless of what channel it is. And I think the challenge still exists in many organisations. I think the challenge is actually more political than it is technology. It's actually getting people within organisations to share that information that can be used. I think the other challenge is it's all very well talking about delivering email to various different devices and what have you. I think the key is about what I term contextual relevance. Is making sure that you actually know where the client really is in real time, and then being able to actually structure communications to those individuals that are relevant to them at that point in time, rather than just sending what I call the standard email, which might be formatted in different ways, and making sure that the actual communication is highly engaging with that individual at that particular moment in time.
Yes, that's the change to the old saying about the right message to the right person at the right time. It's now in the right place as well, as long as you know it. Okay, some really interesting observations from our panellists, and it's obviously an area that's getting more and more important. Has anyone got any questions to start us going to any of the panel on this whole issue of mobile email? We'll get you a mic, sir. Can we have a microphone, please? The microphone is now roaming, and the gentleman has got it. Please, stand up, sir. Tell us who you are, what company, and ask a question.
Hello. Is that working? Yes. Shivio, University of Chester. So over the last couple of years, we've moved to responsive email designs, going from kind of multi-column to sort of single column to use on a 3.5-inch, mobile phone screen. I think what we've seen over the last year or couple of years is this mobile phone screen is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And at what point does the mobile device become a tablet? I've got an iPad mini that uses a desktop layout, but somebody's got a Galaxy Note that uses a almost 7-inch screen, 6-inch screen. So when does the mobile template start to look a bit silly on a really big mobile phone screen?
Anyone fancy that question, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'll take
Richard's taking it, please.
Yes, there are several ways of coding emails to fit onto mobile screens. There's the app media queries, which change the layout of the email itself in response to the screen size and being detected on a mobile device. There's also scalable designs, where you set the min and max width of the email itself, and then the content of that email scales down to fit the screen. So whether you initially view it portrait or then twist it to landscape, the email itself will fit that screen up to its maximum that you've set. And I think when it comes to the larger tablets like the iPad, you can then prevent it from becoming too large and your content from dissipating the screen by setting a maximum width within that. So I think it's a bit like web pages. We have to be aware that screen sizes are going to vary widely, and to make sure that the design that we're producing is intelligent, so that it scales down beautifully on a very small screen, but doesn't get too separated and still looks like a cohesive design on a very, very large screen.
Thank you very much, Richard. Mark, would you like to come in on this one?
Yeah, sure. I think designing for mobile makes you a better designer, I think, and a better marketer, because you've got such limited real estate to get people's attention. And then we go back to desktop and we kind of become all bloated and wordy again, you know. The point is that people have very short attention spans, and they're getting shorter by the second. So if you've got something that works really well on a screen which is 3.5 inches wide, you know, there's no reason it needs to change dramatically for it to be effective on a screen that's maybe 5 inches wide. Things like using bulletproof buttons, so buttons that are designed to look like buttons even if the image is switched off, well worth doing. Having a responsive design so you make full use of any screen real estate that's available, also very well worth doing. You don't need to fundamentally change the design, and so actually the point at which a mobile screen becomes a tablet screen, you know, yeah, maybe in the different moment they're in, but actually you're talking about rendering, you're talking about getting your message across, the same thing works very well. One company I think does this really well, it's a company called Naked Wines. They're not a customer of ours, it's not a plug or anything, but if you sign up to their emails work really well on mobile, but they also work really well on desktop, because they've got good quality images, very clear call to actions, and that's all you really need with email. You know, nobody makes any money when somebody receives an email. They only make money, well, we do, but you don't make any money until they actually click through. So don't try and sell your story in the email. Get them to click that link and get somewhere and do something, because that's where you achieve your marketing goals.
Thank you, Mark. I think Rob would like to come in.
Yeah, so the key from the consumer's point of view is to get a good first-time experience automatically, and whether you're using media queries or using various handset detection tools out there, by understanding the device itself, you can automatically do some stuff which we're used to on email, but to repurpose on mobile, such that some of those important principles, the 80-20 rule, where the majority of people are spending 80% of their time above the fold, make sure you've got your good content above the fold, because only 20% are going beneath it. All your best content should be left aligned, because that's what people are expecting to see. Make sure the calls to action are built for thumbs and not fingers. If it's a smartphone or indeed a feature phone, people won't want to be fiddling around trying to expand things. It's got to be quick and easy to use with the thumbs. And finally, I'd make sure that you're using wireframes. It sounds very basic. We're used to this in the PC world, but use wireframes as the way to create content using cascading style sheets to make sure you've got a good structure which can then be dynamically repurposed for the Android or the iPhone or the BlackBerry or whatever else.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Do we have any more questions on mobile email? You may speak. Lady up here. We'll get you a mic, madam, in just a moment. Could you say who you are and what your company is, and then ask your question as loudly as possible, please?
Hello.
Thank you.
I'm Sally from London Hubs International. I want to know, how do you overcome, obviously, BlackBerries and iPhones, all these browsers respond differently. So how can you overcome emails looking differently on each device for your phone?
Did you hear that? Okay. Please, Mark.
It depends.
Mark, could you just repeat the question in case anyone didn't hear it?
So,
because you obviously have very good hearing.
Yeah, so there's with all the different devices, all the different browsers, how do you make sure that you're optimizing for each and every one of them? Was that essentially the question? And I guess it does depend. I mean, it depends what proportion of your list, your engaged list, actually uses these less common devices. I mean, again, referring back to our own reporting, 40% are on smartphones, and of the 40% that are on smartphones, 89% are Apple devices, and of the tablets, 90% are Apple devices. So we don't generally advise to optimize for Android if your lists are in the same proportion. So first answer is, if it's a small percentage, you know what, don't worry about it, focus on the bigger wins. There's probably other stuff that your team could be doing that's going to get you more better marketing results. If it is a significant proportion, then you just need to throw a resource at it, to be frank. Test it, use something like Email on Acid or Litmus. They're also really good. Most of the tools out there will integrate with it anyway, but it's well worth doing that if you don't use an ESP or your ESP doesn't do that. Litmus is fantastic. They do great infographics, they do great research, really worth signing up for one of their accounts if you're not already doing that. So if you've got the resources and it's important to you, test. If you've got the resource and it's not important to you, put those resources in some other area, because if it's not a big proportion, people get really hung up on it, and it's not actually that important, I don't think.
Thank you, Mark. Martin, have you got anything to add to that? You were nodding during that one.
Well, apart from I was agreeing with him.
Yes, indeed.
I think the one thing I'd say, and I'm probably going to throw this whole thing out now, is that what we found with a number of our clients is that they've actually moved away to a certain degree from email on mobiles and actually moved to apps. So they're actually delivering a better user experience through apps, and they're using email literally just to get someone to actually either access their app. And what we're also seeing now is then the growth of push notifications in these apps as well as being the communication channel of preference. So, the reality is I think you've got to combine everything. You've got to combine, email, apps, mobile optimized websites, all of those sort of things, so that sort of complete user experience. And I think when you're thinking about the sort of your planning in terms of how you're going to engage with your customers on those mobile devices, I think apps is actually quite a good way forward as a method, and use email literally to get people to download those apps.
Okay, thank you. I think Rob, something to add on this one?
Yeah, Martin, I don't think you've thrown that out at all. I think it's a very valuable thing. Going back to the silo concept here, it's just not possible to say that the job of the email is this, the job of the SMS is that, the job of the site and the app is such and such. It depends. It depends on who you're trying to reach and their mobile behavior and device usage. It depends on the role within the whole purchase funnel. Are you trying to acquire them as new customers? Are you trying to get them to activate some call to action, to convert to sale, or indeed to create some long-term engagement and loyalty? Each has a different role to play. The email and the SMS in many ways are the connective tissue that bring all those different components together. But I would say there are some common themes running through all the different formats, and it's all about understanding whether the customer is wanting to get a service-based alert, a marketing-type message, or some kind of prompt to purchase and convert. And I agree wholeheartedly with Martin's point that if you're looking to get immediate activation, a push notification in an app is good. However, let's remember there's still 40% of people out there who don't have smartphones. And when you think that SMS, for example, gets opened by people, 90% of people are opening an SMS within 20 minutes, actually that is another very plausible solution when it comes to the activation phase.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more questions from anyone? The microphone is at the front.
Hi.
It's going to go to the back in a minute. Please, madam.
Thank you. I'm Caroline Chapney from Elsevier. My question is, I was just wondering what's the best way to monitor where the response is coming from to check whether it's from mobile devices in email. So using the sort of smart marketing ports, for example, is there a breakdown there of where the responses are coming from?
So the question was about is there a breakdown of monitoring mobile email? Mark, did you get all of it?
I think Smart Marketeer is a Silverport product, isn't it? So, no, I thought it was. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, most people will be able to show you who is opening your email and who is clicking through by device. You can then cross-reference that with your web analytics package or whatever to then work out who's converting. You can also use your own email service provider's tracking cookie if you want to as well, which would then tie it all through together. But a good question, because mobile open doesn't necessarily mean mobile transaction. In fact, I think the point's already been made that you might grab someone on their mobile where they're running for a train, but when they get home, it's the iPad they actually buy something on. Is a general rule of thumb anyway.
Indeed. Also, a supplementary question, if I may. There's some evidence that open rates and click-through rates are higher when the email is actually received on a mobile device. Is there any evidence of that, or is it a bit patchy?
Well, I think very much so. I mean, if you look at again, talking about the Apple products, by default they all download images as standard, so you're always going to get a higher open rate, because that's how we measure opens. Click-through rate, yeah, I mean, if you're getting a higher open rate, you're going to get a corresponding higher click-through rate. So I think that's what's predominantly driving that increased response rate, if you ask me.
Okay, we're running out of time. Thank you very much. Anyone else on the panel want to come in on that one before we have one more question? Okay, let's go straight to the last question at the back, please.
Hi, I'm Danica from Apex Motors.
however, we do not send out our email marketing in different languages going to the international markets. Is that a trend that you see changing in the future, translating HTMLs, and are any of your clients currently at that point at the moment?
Okay, who'd like to take that question about international markets? I think Martin has an idea on that.
We actually have a particular client, a global client in the music industry that is actually facing that challenge. And it's actually specific to the Japanese market that we're finding the challenge, because basically they've been doing mobile email for quite a long time, in fact, and they've had obviously different devices and more advanced devices than we've had in Europe for many years, in fact. And there's a whole raft of challenges that come in when you're dealing with those kind of ISPs, in fact, especially in Japan, of making sure, one, you have the right content. They use a very different format in terms of the way the message is done. So it has been a challenge, but they've managed to be able to do that. Outside of Japan, generally what we've found, through marketing to different countries around the world, absolutely. I think it's important to engage with them in their own language, number one. Two, being able to optimise for that, I think, again, takes just a lot of work and a lot of understanding of each particular market, and obviously just trying to understand how you're going to engage with those clients. But Japan is probably the toughest one that we've come across.
No real shortcuts then, hard work and a lot of attention to detail.
Sorry, there is one quick shortcut you can do. We wrote a blog quite recently on our site, Pure 360 Community. You can actually use Google Translate to translate your emails. Now, it's not ideal, but I would rather receive an email in bad English than not in English at all. So it's a decision that you can make. It's very quick, very easy to do. It's worth trialling to see if it improves your results.
So if you're prepared
it is a very long slog.
Settle for bad English, Mark's your man. I don't think that's quite what we meant though. Richard has a point as well, I think, on this.
Yes, I was going to say that with most of the stats that I've seen, the biggest growth markets for mobile is the African nations and developing countries in particular. Because it's much more cost effective to put up a mast than it is to develop the infrastructure for cabling. So when it comes to truly global marketing campaigns, the mobile is going to be the chief device to receive those campaigns. When it comes to managing the housekeeping of those different languages, then what we've found in the past is, yes, you can use Google Translate and everything else to make sure you've got the content right, but it's much easier to manage it with separate templates for each language. And given the state of the world economy, you've choice of English, Spanish, and soon to be kind of Chinese and as your key languages. Start with those and build out as your markets develop.
Okay, thank you very much. We're really running out of time, I'm afraid. Could easily have had a 1-hour debate on this subject. I'm sure any of our panellists would love to hear from you if you've got specific queries. Let me just ask them all to have a 1-minute summary of where we are currently with email on mobile devices and why it matters to us all going forward.
Okay, so I'd raise 2 points. The first point is that people are indeed expecting to see email optimized on their phones automatically. When you're doing it, make sure you've got the consumer in mind. Think about what they will be looking to do. Activate something quickly and easily with location, with time specific, maybe a click to call, maybe a click to download an app. And the second point is linked to that. Think about analytics and results. Think about whether it's just a case of looking at click through rate as being the important one, or what happens beyond that click. There are many good examples now. I'll cite two. One of them, British Airways. They ran a campaign where their click-throughs on mobile email were 50%, and they downloaded 60,000 apps on the basis of a mobile-optimized site. Another example, a brand called Savvy Mums, where they had a 3 times improved click-through rate for the optimized email for mobile, and when compared mobile email against PC, it was more than double the open rate. So there are loads of results out there, some great case studies. Use them, test thoroughly, and improve.
Thank you, Rob. Richard?
Yes, I'd come back to the different mobile device itself. So how mobile is your mobile recipient? Are they out and about with an actual smartphone, or are they sitting at home in front of the TV with an iPad looking to purchase? And I think it's the key thing to do there is to look at your behaviours, see how many people are clicking through, whether they're clicking through your websites, and use that to decide what kind of content you're going to deliver to that person. Because if they're out and about on an actual mobile device, they might be looking to check, retain an email for later, and then come back to that when they're at home or in the cafe surfing on the email.
Thank you, Richard. Mark.
I'm not going to do a summary, just one thing we haven't mentioned yet, which is really well worth looking into, is Apple's Passbook and the Android equivalent. If you have physical locations in any way, shape or form, I highly recommend that you look into it. I did a blog on eConsultancy. No, I didn't. I was about to do a blog on eConsultancy. I will be very soon. About Apple's Passbook in particular. It is an absolute goldmine for people that are emailing people regularly and want to visit their shops or visit their restaurants or anything like that. It's a great way of tying the individual contact you have via email with when people are out and about, because that location-aware targeted offers is very, very powerful and very underused at the moment. It will become something that everyone's doing all the time very soon, so do it soon. Thank you very much. I'm Mark Mooney.
Thank you, and Martin, finally.
I think going back to the original question that you asked, Mike, about silos is very important. I think it's email needs to be part of an overall communication strategy to a customer via mobile. I think apps is quite an important part of that process as well, and you need to be thinking about that. In terms of the other aspects I'd sort of summarise on would be definitely the fact that whenever you're communicating via email, and even more so with mobile, make sure the content is highly relevant to that individual and make sure it's relevant to them in real time now.
Absolutely. Thank you to all our panellists. Thank you all for being here and for your questions. And this is something that's going to get more and more important as the months go by. So it begins here. And we'll see you on LinkedIn. Thank you.